hello. Let's see if we can figure out who all's on here. So this one is a little different. So if you're watching, happy Fat Tuesday. We don't have any comments. If you're watching and you can see us, leave us a comment so we can see it. What I might do.
I don't think there is. See that thing up by the live?
What? Oh, yeah, 0. It says 0 up there. Yeah.
I think it's views.
That's viewers. Let me see if what happens if I was going to see if I could do it on my phone here.
So we're not live.
I'm live on here.
We are live.
We are live.
We are live right now.
We are on.
So if somebody gets on and looks later, they're going to see us fumbling around.
Looking at our phones, I just clicked down there and it's not saying anything up there, but one watching, that's probably me.
But it's not showing up there. It's still
It's not
showing
showing
as a
up
0.
there.
So there might be some people there.
There could be some people going or whatever.
Right.
So
Oh, there's 2.
Now we got people coming
there's
on.
something
So
going on
I
there.
figured it'd take some time. So
Give it a couple minutes.
I don't know where you're looking at.
so on this,
You see where the
Oh,
live
it's an
is there?
eyeball.
There's an eyeball.
I
Yeah.
see it now.
so
This is us being real. We're fumbling around. What's that up there?
yeah, that's definitely on. It's Fat Tuesday. We got hurricanes for those that are doing. We got beads on because it's Mardi Gras.
There's a blizzard outside.
And there's a blizzard outside here in Nebraska, so we've got blizzard warnings for people
Here
that
we
are, and we're gonna hang out. So hopefully, if you're watching now, there's only a couple of people, but later on when you watch it, you'll be able to see that. So, we're here to talk about shoes because everybody likes to talk about shoes, and I think last time when we did the shoe list, we kind of went through the history of the shoe list a little bit.
Mhm.
So if you don't know anything about the shoe list, that's from our last video, but how long have we been doing shoe list?
I started in 2008. We looked at shoes prior to that, but we started doing the shoe
An
list, I
actual
believe it
list.
was like 2008.
So it's something we've been doing for a long period of time, and it's because we think it's important, right? So we wouldn't be doing it if we didn't think it was important. And so our hope today was to answer some questions. So if you're on and you have questions, throw them in the comments, and we'll answer them. We asked on Instagram, so I have some questions. I have flashcards from people that send in questions. So we have definitely have things to talk about, and hopefully we find it valuable and we can keep it up. And so when people want to look and get information about shoes in general, we have something to refer people to. So I think probably the biggest thing that we should start with would be what do we look for in a good shoe? Like how do we actually go through the process of putting shoes on the shoe list or not? In fact, that was one of the questions. It was from 397 Vogel on Instagram. So if 397 Vogel's on, that's your question. That's where we want to start. Is just what does it take to, what do we do when we look at a shoe? So if you've actually looked at our shoe list, I'm going to put it up here on the screen. I hope we can go through what we kind of look for in a shoe. So I don't know, Dave.
Well, I think one of the
what are the things that when we're kind of looking at shoes, what is it that you really like, kind of looking at in a shoe?
Yeah, we like to, I guess the one thing that I always tell people is I want that shoe to feel like it's becoming part of you. If you're slipping around in that shoe, if you're pistoning in and out of that shoe, it hasn't become part of you. We want you to be able to feel the ground, and we like to take a shoe and see, hopefully you can see what I'm doing here, but we'll take that shoe and we'll give some good pressure
I
on
think you
it.
gotta slide over a little bit, Dave.
Am I kind of out of the
Is
screen?
Dave out of the screen?
Yep,
I didn't
so-
realize he was out of the screen there.
Sorry about that, but a lot of times you'll take a shoe back here at the back end and you give a little pressure and that'll just collapse under you. We want to see something that'll kind of hold on to you. We like to see a shoe that if you give a little bend at the toe box, and sometimes I can be a little bit too aggressive, but there should be some movement here. It shouldn't just collapse. But one of the things that I see a lot of times, and we've all seen it, is you give a push on that shoe and it'll bend anywhere. And that's not a shoe that's really going to become part of you and help you interact with the ground. And that's the other thing I like to tell people is this shoe is a shoe is the thing that helps you interact with the ground. It's going to tell your muscles when to engage or when to turn off. Some of the other things that we'll look at, and this is all on the shoe list.
Yeah, so you can see that on the screen there is that this people think this is the back of the shoe list. I think this is the front of the shoe list, right? Because the qualities that we look for in a shoe and what you look for when you go shoe shopping,
right?
Like that's the important part. The actual list
Right.
of shoes is the least important. But if you understand this half of the sheet,
Right.
and I think you got it.
Yep, and we like to take a shoe. I always tell people I hold the sole towards me and the toes down, and I like to give it a nice little squeeze. And again, most shoes out there, unfortunately, are just going to collapse under you when you give it a little bit of a squeeze. And then
Now,
we'll
you're looking, David, you're looking at the actual sole of the shoe, or you're looking at the heel counter when you do that?
Well, it's a little bit of both, honestly,
Yeah.
because sometimes you'll see a shoe. That's a great question, because sometimes what you'll see is you'll give it a squeeze and maybe it's solid down here, but the material will give way. Sometimes you give a squeeze and the rubber, it just collapses under you. So if you've got a shoe that's really kind of sloppy and loose, again, it's not going to engage your muscles the way we want them to be engaged, and then you're going to be stuck in patterns that we're trying to take you out of. One of the other things, and I'm sure everybody else has heard this so often, is don't get caught up in, well, it's an expensive shoe, so it's a good shoe. I've had so many people that'll come in and they'll say, oh, well, I've got really good shoes. They cost me $180. That's not necessarily a sign of a good shoe.
Yeah.
So, like I said, to me, the shoe needs to become part of you. And if you don't feel like the shoe is part of who you are, it's not working for you.
That bend in the toe is such an important thing, and I know that's a passion that Laura, you really have with shoes, and we struggle with it with certain people. So you want to kind of just go over kind of what you mean by it, because we got so many shoes that have that such a stiff toe box or a rocker. We're getting into rocker shoes. I know that's a question that a lot of people have, but
when you go to walk, you guys, you want to have a good solid heel counter that Dave just went through, that your heel doesn't collapse in, just like what Dave said, the heel doesn't give. When your heel hits the ground, you've got to be able to go through. We want you to be able to feel the arch of your foot, and then you've got to be able to bend. This is your big toe joint. That's got to be able to bend so you can roll through your toe joint. And that's why you want to have a toe box that bends very easily at the toe, because that's a normal bend of your toe. You don't want a shoe that bends in half. Well, if you have a shoe, kind of like the Hoka's is one example, and it's really stiff at the toe box and it's really hard to bend here, and you have normal flexibility in your big toe, what's going to happen is it's going to be really hard for you to roll through and push off your big toe. So then you're going to have to prematurely use your hip flexors or your back extensors to pull yourself forward to help your foot to clear the ground. And so if you're wearing a shoe that is a very stiff at the toe box, it's going to facilitate hip flexors and back extensors. And sometimes people are buying shoes like, I know the questions come up about hiking shoes. That's one thing you got to look for in a hiking shoe, because they look at it really like a steel toe shoe. The hiking shoes can tend to be very stiff at the toe box. And if they're too stiff at the toe box, I was trying to hike a 14er, and we got above tree line. My husband got altitude and we had to go back down, thank the Lord, because my hiking shoes were way too stiff. And I was my back was talking to me, my hip flexors on my calf, and I finished this hike. But it's when we look at shoes at the clinic, like Dave, we want the brain to be able to sense the ground underneath your foot, to be able to feel heel, arch, and toe. We want your brain to be able to feel grounded to help inhibit a nut. So the more your brain can sense the ground, allows your body to alternate and to be able to move correctly.
yes.
But we're using shoes to help complement our posture restoration program that we're putting you through.
Which
But
is a
the
good
goal
point.
would be that you're not like in shoe jail all the time.
So these aren't like the best shoes to run faster in. They're not
Right.
the best shoes to not sprain your ankle. They're not the best shoes to protect your bunion. They're the best shoes for making sure that we keep your body in a good position. What do you think, Jason, is the most important thing you look at when you're helping your patients out?
The one thing that we've noticed over the last probably 2 years, not so much this year, but there's some shoes out there. But if you look at these shoes and you look at from the side profile of where this here is the heel counter or the sole of the heel versus this here, where this is sticking out maybe about a half inch to an inch further than this shoe. So if you look at a lot of the shoes most recently, look at the height of how much cushion's in this shoe versus this shoe. So you're probably looking at maybe half inch to an inch. Some are more than others, and these are the ones that we've kind of come up with. But I think the thing to look out for, the vast majority of shoes, you're going to see a lot of shoes like this. Some are even more profound than others. And a lot of them, I think Lori would attest, they're making them more cushiony. So the material that they're putting them in, I mean, that changes the mechanics of how, what she was talking about, when your heel hits the ground, you're basically hitting your heel sooner as opposed to later, which changes your whole mechanics all the way up through the chain. So that's just one thing to look at. I mean, there's some that are, I mean, I've seen some shoes that are probably 1.5 inches, 2 inches. I don't know. There's other, I mean, that's my thoughts.
Well, and I think we've all had those patients too, where they come in a shoe, you talk about a shoe that's soft, and they love their shoe at the moment. And then you put them in a better quality shoe, and we'll have them walk up and down the hall and they get a sense of the ground. And it's so funny, the number of times then they go back and put their shoe on and they realize they don't sense the ground. They realize they're floating, they're lost in space.
And I think the other thing that's on the very bottom of the shoe list is it talks about the angulation of this and this. It should almost be perpendicular versus some that'll have an angle. They're at a slant. And so that makes you, hit your foot more on one side of your foot than the other, which can alter your mechanics all the way up and make your foot work differently. So we like a shoe that has, I mean, they're not like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Back in 2008, the shoes, they had a lot of give on the outside of the heel, the lateral heel give that Jason talked about, or they were building up shoes to be on the more thicker on the inside of the heel than the outside of the heel. And what that does is that when you do hit the ground with your heel, you are going to hit on the outside of your heel at first. But what was happening is if you're built up on the inside and not as much on the outside, or if it's more cushion on the outside, now you're staying on the outside of your foot for the entire time you're walking or running. Yeah. And it's not going to allow you to roll in and feel the arch of your foot roll through your big toe. And it's going to affect your hip and your pelvis mechanics. But they were doing it. The shoe companies were doing a trend where they're making a lot of outside heel give that was way too much back in 2008. We were on that trend for about 1.5 years and seeing a lot of stress fractures and lateral knee pain and hip pain, and now we're on this like super cushion shoe train.
Yeah. So the reason we look at running shoes particularly, everything. Well, what kind of shoe should I buy? What's the best? This shoe, because running shoes tend to be more, you get one brand for a year, one model for a year. So it's a lot easier for us to do. So we do some work with running shoes so we can have a list of things that we like, but that doesn't have to be that's not like the only shoes that are good are on our list. Those are just ones that we use
and
because we have access to them.
Right. And the same mechanics for running is the same for walking.
Right.
And everyone walks in everyday life.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be a run, but we use those because it's a stable list. It's a lot easier for us to manage, but that's why we want to teach that sort of thing. So I think when I look at things as far as shoes, it's the shoe shopping part that I think is when you put your foot in a shoe, what do you feel? So a lot of the big questions are, well, I have a high arch, I have a low arch, what would be the best for my arch? And I think arches is one of the least things we really are concerned about. You don't really see much about arches on our list, other than you should be able to feel your arch. So you should be able to put your foot in a shoe. You look at it has qualities that we like. You can move it and squeeze it. And then when you stand up, the last bullet on the tips for shoe shopping, I'll pull that back, put that back up there again, says if you stand and balance on each foot, you should be able to sense and balance and sense your heel, arch, and big toe on the ground all at the same time. And if you've taken some PRI courses, you know that we want to make sure that you have as much sense of that foot on the ground. So the shoes aren't they're mechanical,
They're a tool.
but it's not just a mechanical thing to help arch support or heel counter. It's really for the feeling and the sense of you have your whole foot on the ground, and that's what your brain's going to use for managing your body when you're upright. So when we're talking, when we get in classes, we're talking about vision, which we just did recently, or dental, or forward locomotor movement. It's about how much of that foot can you actually feel on the ground. And that's really what the shoe list comes into. So that's put the shoe on, you stand on one foot, can you feel your whole foot on the ground? Can you go to the other foot, feel your whole foot on the ground? We know it. If you get high centered, you put your foot on that ground and you feel your arch, and you either feel your arch in your heel or your arch in your toe. I had a patient today. This is what we did. She bought new shoes. She brought them in. She stood on one foot. She could feel her arch a lot, and she could either feel her arch with her heel or her arch with her toe. So she had too much arch support, right? She had a flat foot, so somebody gave her really a high arch shoe. It was an addition, which is a good shoe, but it was too much for what she needed to be able to stand and feel comfortable on her foot. So we have to back down on arch support. So that's kind of the thing. So then when we take those qualities and we go over to the list, and we've done videos, Laura's done great videos on the actual shoes that are on our list, right? These are just ones that we have access to that we've looked at our stores. So that's what's on our list, because it's our list. And we hope that it helps you guys out with where we're at. We haven't had a ton of time to look through these shoes. Is there any shoes that, Ann, that you look at that you've used a lot over the last, couple months since we've looked at the shoe list that you're finding are helpful to you?
I've had a lot of patients liking the ASICS 2160s.
Which is not a running shoe.
Correct.
Right?
This is a retro shoe.
Yeah, that's one we've been kind of modeling here.
And the Brooks Aerial for people with really, really, really like flat feet. They have been liking that one.
Which would be the beast for the men.
Yep, beast for the men.
And that used to be a shoe that was just a brick.
It was. It was
Yep,
just
they added
a
a-
horse.
I mean, it says there's no added cushion, but it's softer than what they used to be.
I think you said they took out
They took out
The
some
guide
of the
rail.
support.
some of the lateral guide rail or whatever and let that go. So I mean that's where we're at, and we're finding that it's harder to find a shoe that's what we think is going to be good for everybody, which is why we really want to make sure hey, every person needs to look at what fits their foot and what feels good, and ideally, if you have somebody that can test you out and make sure that it is good for your body, that would be the most ideal thing for all that. So, anything else on the shoe list you guys think that is really important that people should know?
I think one of the things you talk about, somebody available to test you out. I think one of the things that we've talked about offering for people before, even if they're not coming in as a patient, but you want to know, hey, is this a good shoe for me? And you're local, we'd be happy to look at people.
Yeah, if you're here in town, we'd be get a shoe
Absolutely.
coming when we
Because that shoe's can make a huge difference in how especially Lincoln Marathon will be here before you know it. All the summer runs. If you're sitting here thinking, hey, is this shoe the right shoe for me? We're here.
It's just springtime. People are going to be out walking around, moving around.
Absolutely.
Every year there's shin splints and knee pain and hip pain back from people that have been inactive all winter and
Right.
just want to be
Well, and I think one of the other things too, when you start thinking about, well, when do I buy a new shoe, is how many miles, especially if you're a runner, how many miles should you be putting on a pair of shoes? And again, I think some of that depends on, some people are heavy runners, man. They hit the pavement hard, and some people they're running and it's soft. But as Lori being a runner, what do you typically tell
It's
people?
usually 300 to 500 miles.
That's what I would say.
But I would say that they're making the material and shoes out of more
Mhm.
recycled material, and they break down a lot quicker.
Right.
And I would say if you're in the same shoe every day, all day, not just to run in,
even
you
if
might need to be
it's-
replaced. Like if you're wearing them for everyday life, I have a shoe I work out. I have a couple different shoes I work out in, and I have one that I'll wear like on to work or Saturday or Sunday. So then they'll last longer. But if
Right.
you're using the very same shoe for everything, you need to replace in 3 months, I would say.
Yeah, they're just not
Most of
lasting
that
long.
ones.
Yeah. And you'll probably know because you'll start feeling it for
Right.
sure.
I think the other thing to remind everybody, we get a lot of emails from people from all over, and we might get an email on what's the best squash shoe or what's the best racquetball
We're
shoe.
gonna get in a little bit more for sure.
We're going to talk about this like casual shoes, but this is a recommended shoe list, and these are guidelines. We just remind people that there's not a perfect shoe for everybody. And I think the biggest thing is, as long as you're looking at these guidelines that
The good qualities.
the qualities, you're not going to find a perfect shoe that has all of these qualities. I mean, if you do, let us know. I mean, we look at these things every year, but I think the biggest things, these guidelines follow a casual shoe. You're going to find some casual shoes that have better arch support and some that might have a better heel counter or whatever. But these are just guidelines to follow. There's not a
But you
perfect
can take those
guidelines
guidelines
and
and
apply
apply
to
it to
other
a
shoes.
racquetball shoe,
other shoes.
Right.
a basketball shoe, a shoe for tennis, a
Right.
shoe for pickleball.
Yes.
And
So just use these guidelines as just something to guide you along the process, because we don't go look at pickleball shoes. We don't go looking at squash shoes, and we just try to give this information out to.
Yeah. And probably the most common question is, what kind of dress shoe, casual shoe can I wear? Right? Everybody wants to know. I can't wear my ASICs to work.
Business
What's a
meeting.
casual shoe? And so that was Ben Healy 10 on Instagram. That was his question: what fashionable shoes are available that aren't just like ASIC shoes? And that, since it's one thing that we look at a lot, I know a long time ago, you guys tried to have a real specific casual shoe list, and it was
It's a nice.
so
Overwhelming.
changed. It was overwhelming, because the shoes,
Jason and I did that. It was like 16 hours of our life. And the shoes, I don't even think lasted a year, a
Like
month
3
and a half
months.
or 2
It
months
was,
in
yeah,
the shoe store.
Change.
And then they were out of stock. And then you just don't have enough hours in the day to go look at shoes, so they changed. So there are some brands of shoe, like Ann went out and looked at casual shoes. Maybe you talk a little bit. I know,
Mhm.
you know, I'm wearing Echoes. Echoes have a great,
so
have that.
for that, what we did is we actually came up with a shoe buddies, an actual casual shoe list, right? It just went live on our website this afternoon. I haven't gotten any emails on it. I figured somebody would have emailed me, hey, when did you put that? But since you're watching, you now know there's actually a button on our website for a casual shoe list. And Ann came up with it. And it's not specific shoes. It's brands that tend to be better than others.
Yep.
So here's what it looks like. So I'm going to put it up on the screen here, and it's got the same qualities on the list. So it's one page. It's not a front and back, but we're looking at the same qualities of what we have for our running shoe list, right? So heel counter, and it's got the toe box that bends, all the same. Its tips for shoe shopping are the exact same, but then we've got brands that for men or for women that actually are, what we would like to see. So since you went over it and
Yeah.
she brought in some actual of her own shoes, because
I love shoes.
Ann loves shoes, and she needs to be in a good shoe because she's also a hot mess.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
she knows she is. It's fine. She's one of us and she's one of you. But I thought she wanted to bring in. I thought it'd be a great idea. She can show kind of what some of her good fashionable shoes look like.
So this is one Lori and I, we both wear a lot. These are Echoes. So bends at the toe box really well. The heel doesn't really collapse in, and from the side, it doesn't really collapse. So I
it
have
has
these.
a good arch support.
Yeah, Echoes tend to have a really good arch support. So
In my experience, I don't know if you found this, it's hard to find casual shoes. You can usually find the bend at the toe box and a good heel counter. It's hard to get casual shoes that have the arch support.
so I have these in 5 colors, maybe 6 now.
Yeah, which is good, but that's a good. And the men's shoes, same thing.
Yep.
They tend to.
Yep, they tend to be
They're
really
leather.
well.
They tend to have a really good stable heel counter. Some arch support. Some people need more. Some people less. But can you feel your foot on the ground? That's the test, right? So it's not am I high arch or low arch? It's what do you feel? Same thing. So Echoes I think is on there for both men and women, right?
Mhm. Yep. Born also. That's typically a really, really good shoe. They have a lot of lace-up shoes, which is really nice.
And no, not every Born shoe is going to be good, and not
Correct.
every Echo shoe is going to be good. But generally, if you were going to try and find a brand,
Yep.
that would be a good brand.
But I
that
think
you would
Ann
start
just
with.
brought up a comment too. I think if you were just to ask a dress shoe, I would say a good quality would be to have a lace-up shoe versus a slip-on shoe, because that lacing that up is going to give you added support through trying to do the best it can to counter or balance out the heel,
Yeah.
or give you a little bit
And
more
if you're
support.
slipping around in that shoe, it's not part of you, and you don't have good
So that would just
interaction
be
with the
kind of
ground.
maybe
It's like to allow the foot to work with the shoe.
shoe.
Right.
And if your foot slips
Slide.
and you have no heel counter, I would not recommend a slip-on shoe.
So
Right.
a lace-up shoe would be maybe one
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
quality for all across the board for a dress shoe.
No, that Echo she just showed, it's got a zipper.
Zipper.
So it
But the
holds your
zipper helps to
Correct.
control the
holds, so it's
midfoot.
not a slip-on shoe,
Yeah.
it's got a zipper. You can
Yeah.
actually hold your foot into it. So.
Yep. A brand that's on there, most people in the States don't know it. It is Frankie 4. This is based out of Australia. It is PT and podiatrists came together to make this brand of shoe there. So I really like it. It's a little more customizable. What they do, I didn't bring all the things, but when you get the shoe, they send you 3 different inserts. So you're able to pick if you need a little more arch, a little less arch. If you're sliding in the front of the shoe, they give you another piece to put in underneath here. So you're really able to customize it a lot better. So this is one pair. Like, I'm not gonna wear these
What does a
shoes.
shoe like that cost?
This is I don't know. I think I got these on sale for like $100, but they're all leather. So
And they each have the inserts that you
yeah,
put in or
yeah.
whatever.
So you get the inserts for all of them. Same.
Something none of us had ever heard of, but our world traveler Anne, who lived in Australia. For,
So you can put those inserts in other shoes?
Yeah, you can put them in other shoes. So I'll take this out, and I have a pair of Sorel boots for the winter time, and the insoles are terrible in them. So I just pop this out and put it in there, and then I feel better in them. So
only available online, I think, in the States. Is that true? Or do you
there
know where else
is
you can get
one
them?
store in Oregon or Washington. So mostly.
If you're in Oregon,
online.
Washington, good luck. Go
Yeah.
get them. Otherwise,
This is the same brand,
internet is cool.
casual
That's
boot.
a Frankie.
Yep, this is a Frankie 4. I
Yes,
can
it's a heel.
wear, yes. Well, that's the kicker. Casual shoes. Like, I'm not gonna go walk 8 miles in these. You know,
Right.
this is I want to go out to eat. I want to go.
So it's got
Movie,
good quality.
like
Is it a
something
perfect
like
shoe?
that.
No, but you have a good sense of
Right.
your foot in that
Yep.
shoe. We wouldn't say, hey, you're gonna go spend all day in that shoe.
Exactly.
But if you're
So-
gonna have something that looks cute, you can look cute, but have something that actually
Still works for you.
has good quality to it.
Yep. So
And Lori's probably going, oh,
Nope.
what did you do? Okay, you're good.
Yeah. Yep.
I know you got some heels you wear every now and then.
Yep.
yep.
That's good.
And then I just brought a sandal in. This is a soft brand.
So that's on this for women. I don't think there's soft or Frankie fours for men.
No.
I think. Is that true?
No, correct.
Jeez.
Correct. Women only. I mean, come on, you guys wear the same shoe like every
Title
day.
IX, we need more women's. Unfair.
But I grabbed this just for the fact, like, it zips up in the back, so it keeps your heel a little bit more snug. Crosses over here, so your foot doesn't really flop around. So this is better than wearing a flip flop, and whatnot. But again, just different options.
And we've talked about
A little
Birkenstocks
bit
in the
cute.
past, because as long as it's got a heel strap.
Your Birkenstocks, you know, if it had a heel strap, better.
Well, the thing about the
But-
Birkenstock is it has the straps that go across to help the foot to work with the shoe.
Yeah.
And it has a deep heel cup here,
Good
which
arch.
allows to
Yeah.
give more control of the calcaneus. So this is an exception
So the number one reason we use the orthotics we use, Paul's orthotics, we can talk
because it
about
has
that.
a deep heel cup.
It's the
and
heel
it has
cup.
ours.
I mean, if there's
And the
one thing about that,
And the
heel cup.
lateral flange on the
Yeah,
outside.
with a lot of fun, which is Birkenstock. So that's a
And they do make, for those of you who don't know, they make an orthotic that has the Birkenstock qualities that you can put in
Yep.
shoes. And Birkenstock has come out with some shoes, casual shoes.
Yep, casual shoes here
that
lately.
actually have the
You can put-
Birkenstock
yeah.
sandal.
Yep.
yeah, it's on. So that's on the list. Birkenstock. They got men and women on there. That's on the list. What else
Yep.
is on there? Bionics.
Bionics.
And Clark's
Taos.
for both men and women tend to be brands that have good quality. So not everybody, not all of them have it, but it's on there. So if you want the casual shoe list, it is available now on our website. So you can go on it. Again, it's just brands, not necessarily
Actual.
specific, because we can't keep track of every single Echo that's out there. It's just impossible. So, but if you wanted a starting position, and if you're smart, you know how to shoe shop, that's why we're talking right now anyway. That's what we do. There was a question about hiking boots, alive on Instagram, hiking boots, trail runner shoes. Ann did a video on our website, ran a video, I don't know, a couple months ago,
Mhm.
where she went to Shields and looked at a bunch of hiking boots. And so that's on our YouTube channel. So, and basically it's the same discussion we just had. Look at the qualities. And Lori already mentioned it. So you could go to our YouTube channel and look for that video, and it goes over brands of hiking boots, not every specific hiking boot. Trail runners look like they're like running shoes, so you could use
Yeah.
the same qualities.
They just have more traction on the bottom.
There's a more traction on. Tend to have stiffer soles, so you have to watch the sole stiffness. I tend to find the Brooks tend to
Yeah,
still be
the
the
Brooks
best.
Cascadia
That's
is
the one
a
that I
good
use the
trail
most.
shoe. We just don't have a lot of trails here in Nebraska.
Yeah, we're in Nebraska, so there's not as much.
So
running.
we don't have as much access to look at all of them. I'm sure there's other great, but the Brooks Cascadia is one I've had good luck with over the
Yeah.
years.
Probably the other biggest thing, and I know you work a lot with basketball shoes. Basketball players, Jason, is basketball shoes, right? And I know you had a guy in recently. I don't know, tell that story about
I
that.
had a guy come in about a month ago and he had a basketball shoe and was asking me what I thought of it. And I went to go bend it and it would not bend. It was just literally like a brick. So
which is pretty common for those basketball
Yeah.
shoes. They are. They're and for the stress that those guys put on their feet.
you got to remember
it's a
they're cutting
thing.
and they're doing lots of
Yeah,
different
right.
things. So we actually had a guy in Germany, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Kazuki in Germany, Kazufumi in Germany, who is a semi-pro basketball player. Like he lives it. Like
Yeah.
he's a PRC therapist, so he's deep into PRI and he loves basketball. And so he had reached out a while back and I said, well, Kaz, I don't know basketball shoes like you know basketball shoes. You come up with a list. So we came up with a list. We tried to get him to send us like a hard copy of it, and we want to get it kind of so we can disseminate it, but it's on his Instagram. So what I did is I just I pulled up his Instagram and I took screenshots of the shoes that he put on his Instagram. And so they're here. We'll probably get them on our website, or hopefully we get a hard copy from him. If not, they're going to be on this video. Or you can go to his Instagram. If you got Instagram, look up Kazufumi Nishimura, and he's got, if you scroll down, these are his best choices. And so
But again, if you look at these shoes, just to compare it to our,
and he took the same quality
Yep,
as what we did.
but
and
the
he
only one that
supplied the
might
basketball
be, you know,
shoes.
like I said earlier, the Kai One Speed has a little bit more of the posterior,
Mhm.
but everyone else has a pretty
It's
vertical.
a vertical flange. It's a
Yep.
flat shoe. The whole shoe is on the ground.
Yep.
It's not a curved shoe. So his
the
top
curry might be a
choice.
little bit more like a rocker shoe.
Yeah, his top choice for what's
Yeah.
this one? For the average to normal arch is the Anti-Kai one.
Anti-Kai 1,
And
and
then
for an average to high arch is Way of Wade 10.
Yeah. So none of us know that
Those
much about
shoes.
basketball shoes, but I looked them up. You can get them online. They're at Dick's or whatever. And then he was so awesome, and actually categorize them or kind of organize them based on which one gives you the most heel support. So and really, of course, all of them have good heel support because Kaz knows what he's doing, right? So all of them have good heel support. None of them are on less heel support. They all have really good heel support. Inner arch support, some have more arch support, some have less. And it just depends on what you need. So if you have, where you need more arch support, more arch awareness, well, that Anti-Kai 1 is on there. If you need less, the Way of Wade is over on the other side. So he's got them kind of organized. This is all right off his Instagram. He organized them based on the toe box width, which we're going to get into a little bit maybe in a second here. A wider toe box or a narrow toe box. It just depends on what your foot shape is and what you need. You just got to put the shoe on and figure out where you're at. So if you know you need a wider toe box, again, the Anti-Kai 1 is a good one. And if you need less, probably the Rigor AR1 is right. So that's the way he's got them organized there. Which ones are more stable or less stable? Again, based on what you need. Right. So Kaz did a great job. And then even what position do you play? As a point guards are going to be probably more dynamic and more side to side activities. So those are probably more. I didn't look. Just probably more stable kind of shoes have more ability to move side to side. And then the ones that are for centers that are tend to be a little bit more probably static. I'm guessing. Probably just more the different type of a shoe. So I'd have to ask Kai or Kaz, and you could probably Instagram message him if you have questions, and he'd be, I'm sure, glad to answer questions on this. But so I just wanted to put those out there because there is a basketball shoe list. We're not in charge of it because we don't know basketball as well as Kaz does. But he did a great job with those guys. So if you have questions, look up Kaz, find him on Instagram, and we'll hopefully maybe get at least those pictures on our list or link to it at some point. So that's something that I'd like to do with that. So that's basketball shoes. The other questions we got, Rehab Performance Tucson. And again, if you guys are watching, you have questions, throw them in the chat so that we have it. I've still got my cards going, but if you got questions, let us know. For high arch or a foot, do we recommend skip lacing? That was from Rehab Performance Tucson. I know that's I don't remember who that is, but I think it's a PRC. But
skip lacing, you guys. I'm joking.
just
It's just
show it.
you
Just
missed
say what
one
that
of the
is. That's a
things
good question. It's I don't know what it was.
So skip lacing is when you take the lace of a shoe and where maybe you're not crisscrossing it, and then you come up the side and then crisscross and go the way up. And yes, it's totally fine as long as the foot can work with the shoe. Usually with high arch people, they have a really rigid midfoot. You have 26 bones in your foot, and it's hard for those individuals to let their arch come down and sense an arch. And I know traditional way of doing things would be with individuals that have a high arch foot would be to put them in a more neutral shoe or a shoe that doesn't have as much arch support. And I'm not in disagreeing with that, but sometimes I'll put my high arch individuals in a shoe where they can at least sense the arch, because if you don't have a landing pad, the foot's not going to go down and learn how to roll in. And so if I had someone I had to do crisscross stitching with, I would also make sure that I was maybe putting them in a shoe where they could sense their arch. And they might need more of a stability shoe to start with the
Right.
goal that they could end up in a neutral shoe so they could pronate through a bigger range of motion. I hope that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I think that makes sense.
I probably provided more information than I needed.
Because people with a higher tend to be more rigid
But,
foot,
you know,
right?
here I am.
We used to modify our shoes based on rigid midfoot and lax midfoot, and it was kind of confusing. I think it made sense. It made sense to us, or it made sense to anybody else. I don't know, but the rigid midfoot tends to be that supinated shoe that just doesn't like having laces pulled over the top of it. So I think that was kind of what we were referring to. We want to get that rigid midfoot to let go.
So people hit their midfoot on the upper part of the shoe or the bast of the shoe.
Yeah.
And then they get a red area. So absolutely you can relieve the pressure, but you want to make sure you're retraining that foot how to pronate and to be able to assist an arch with their rehab program.
Absolutely.
On the other end of the spectrum, maybe you were talking about that. I think about, we work with Dr. Paul Coffin, who's a podiatrist, and people that on the other end of the spectrum, instead of having a higher arch, if they feel like they're sloppy and loose in the shoes, and I find most people don't have to do this, but he'll instruct people. I don't know if you can see what's going on here, but he'll start distally or close to the toes and make sure you're getting snug there and work your way up. And sometimes
actually tie the shoes. I mean,
Right.
that's something on our list too. Make sure you tie your shoes.
right,
Like,
yeah,
And untie them when you take them off.
right.
But Dave brings up a good point, you guys. You want to tie your shoes tight from the bottom up. Everyone will tie them tight up here.
yeah.
But if you tie them from the bottom up, it helps to secure the heel in the shoe.
Right.
Absolutely.
If
And
you can
most of
take
us are
your
in too
shoe
big a
in,
hurry.
and if you can take your foot in and out
Yeah.
of the shoe, with your shoes still tied, they're not tight enough.
For sure.
And I think the one thing, I was just looking at this shoe list, I kind of get a kick, and I think we've all had these patients that want to know what kind of shoe is the best. And so you say, well, bring in your shoes, and they bring a garbage bag full of shoes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they bring probably about 5 or 6 pairs of orthotics. And they say, they'll show you the shoes, and they all got good shoes, but they'll say, well, this shoe works with this orthotic, or this shoe doesn't work with this orthotic, or vice versa. They got 3 different bands of orthotics. And I say, a lot of times you may not even need the orthotic in that shoe. And I know our shoe list does talk about orthotics, and this is a whole other topic, and maybe we'll get into this on another day, but I think the biggest thing is there's different combinations of shoes that are more orthotic friendly than others. And I think the patient figures it out. Like Dave says, you got to be part of the shoe. I think a lot of times that, like Dr. Coffin always says, the foot's got to work with the orthotic's got to work with the shoe, and they all 3 got to work together. So there's not really one gold standard, but I think a lot of people figure it out on their own. Like, if I use this combination, this works for me. And I'm okay with that. And I'm not going to mandate saying that you have to be in this shoe and you have to be in this orthotic, because if they're coming in with 2 or 3 orthotics, obviously the 2 or 3 orthotics didn't
At
work.
that point, the orthotic's not the problem. It's the
Correct.
It's the foot that's the problem. Right. That's kind of how it
Or
is.
it's just like a pillow with a cervical. Like, you got 5 different pillows.
Right.
At that point, it's not the pillow's fault.
No.
It's the next fault.
Yep.
Yeah, that's how we go all the time. So you guys know that Lori is our shoe queen. And not Lori's shoe queen, but she's the one who's you've been in the shoe list. So you don't know that we planned something.
We have a little game.
So we have a little game that we're going to play with Lori, and unfortunately, it's not a bit too many people watch, but people will watch it later. So we're going to see how good you are with shoes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So what I have a blindfold.
Okay.
This is my daughter's blindfold that she wears at night. This is Mateo's blindfold, and we're going to have you blindfold your eyes, and I'm going to give you a shoe and see if you can tell me what shoe this is.
It's a spin-off of Name That Tune.
So instead of name that tune, we're going to see.
You can answer all the
We're going to see.
questions.
We got some questions to answer, but before we get to
We still have
that,
20 minutes.
I wanted to have a little bit of fun. Now, all I wanted was that, really, to those people. So it's on there. Lori is such a good sport, and she's so competitive that I know she's going to want to get these right. So we picked up I have some shoes. They're shoes that we have. and then I'm
They're
gonna,
here in the clinic.
and they're from here in the clinic.
There
So
are shoes.
these are shoes you should know, and based on her sense of touch.
This is the Brooks Adrenaline.
Which do you know which year, which version of Brooks Adrenaline
Oh,
that
come
is?
on. The 19. This is the Brooks Adrenaline 19 because it's the only one we have in the clinic.
Well, that's not, but that's why I tricked you. So feel the back of the heel counter.
Oh,
to the
this
back
one.
of the
Okay,
shoe.
so this is a newer one, the 24.
No, feel the back of it. She's right. That's what gives it. That's the 22. It's the one that has
Oh.
The
Yeah.
leopard
Well,
print.
It's the
okay,
leopard
well, let's
print
just
one.
say it is the Brooks
You-
Adrenaline.
It's a Brooks. It was a Brooks
Right.
Adrenaline. You were right.
You-
Right,
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 right.
I
right.
have to guess numbers.
She
You guys
nailed that. Brooks Adrenaline 22.
Ding,
So
ding, ding, ding,
Brooks
ding.
Adrenaline
You
22. It's a great shoe.
1 for 1.
We still the 24 is still a good shoe. It's not as good as the old,
I
the
love
old
the
ones,
24,
She has 24. I like the 24.
I like it.
Some people don't. Here.
Here it
Here's
comes. There it is.
the other one. If anybody else knows what that shoe is, they could comment it or whatever. So that is.
Oh, I think this is the old A6 Cumulus because look how narrow the heel
I
counter
know
is.
the narrow heel counter.
Look,
That-
the good for ankle stability.
Yeah, that should
look
be-
how narrow this heel counter is. This is the A6 Cumulus. Am I right?
You are
You are
100% right.
definitely
Ding,
right.
ding,
I'm
ding.
impressed,
This is
Lori.
Cumulus 20.
Cumulus 20. Even though that one I knew you'd know that.
I
That,
love this shoe.
that one came off the wall of
here.
fame. That shoe is on the. So you haven't seen our wall of fame. That shoe is on our wall. Is on
I
our
feel
wall of
like
fame.
I got my gum on
You're
me
doing
or
great.
something. I'll just
Okay.
wait.
Okay, there's a different shoe. That one's.
Oh.
See if you can.
Oh.
See if you can.
Okay,
this
so
one.
this could be
There's two.
the
There's
foundation,
there's
but
two
I
options.
think that if I know my coworkers, you guys are gonna try to trick me. And see how wide this is compared to the foundation. This is
I'm
like
impressed.
2160.
Yeah, so it's got the good
Am I right?
mesh. You are
You
right.
are
but it's
right.
not
You're
as
awesome.
It's
You
not as
guys
narrow
are
as
like
the
trying to
foundation.
trick me with this. This is
Yeah.
a trick one, but
Man, you gotta
the
get some lunch
difference
tomorrow.
between the 2160 is the width of the heel counter, where the foundation was more narrow. And I know this about the foundation.
For sure.
Shoe
Okay.
if you've ever questioned if Lori knows her shoes.
Yes.
This
Okay.
is-
Okay. Here's another one. So you got two more, Lori. You got
three
two
for
more.
3 so
Three
far.
for
That's
three.
pretty impressive.
3 for 3. There's a new one.
Oh, this is stiff at the toe box. This got to be the Hoka that we have.
Yeah. So that's the shoe we give out for a what not to wear.
I wasn't sure. This is a little different back here. This is a shoe I put on somebody. This has to be a Hoka.
That is 100% a Hoka. Well done,
Look at
Lori.
that.
You're
Look
nailing
how
it.
stiff that is. Look how stiff.
You have a phone
Yeah.
a friend coming up, you know.
All right. Here's the last one. This is Ann's favorite shoe. Last.
Oh,
shoe.
Ann's favorite shoe. Then I know this. This
I
is
probably
the
did it.
New Balance 1080. You shouldn't have told me
I
that.
did.
But telling me that it's Ann's favorite. This is like our neuromuscular great shoe back in
know.
the day.
So another one right off the
So
wall of
good.
fame because you can't get it anymore. Lori,
Was this a 1080?
That's
If
a-
you would have told me, I will be
I
honest.
know, I
don't know
probably-
if I would have gotten
I'm
this
sure you would have
one.
gotten that one. I
But when
probably
you told
shouldn't
me it
have.
was Ann's favorite, then I know it was a New Balance 1080.
Yes, that is.
That's pretty
And
impressive.
That's
That is
impressive.
impressive.
That is really
so
impressive.
thanks, Lori. See if
That
if
was
anybody-
Right.
awesome.
Do I get a prize?
you get a prize. You get a prize. I don't know what you get, but you're gonna get a prize.
Have a
Oh
drink.
my gosh, what are you guys doing to
You're
me?
gonna get a prize. But we were thinking.
That was pretty
We
impressive.
got to do name that shoe. And I knew Lori was nailing. All right. The last questions we got on Instagram. Well, we got one from M Dog Winters. It was
We got
about.
one up there.
Oh,
We got a click show.
where are you at?
Right over there.
Oh, what was the casual shoe brand? I couldn't quite hear the name.
Of which one?
Which one? The one.
We can just-
So the new
They're on the
one,
list.
they're on the list, but
Yeah. So here's that casual shoe. Let's
these
say it
two
is.
were Frankie Fours. That's
Yep,
that
I'll-
Australian brand.
I'll put it just so you can see that.
And then
Brand.
Echoes. And then this was Soft.
Yes.
But
So
there's a list for whoever asked that question.
That's the flow movement.
You can,
Excellent.
there's a casual shoe list of different brands for both men and women up on our website.
on our website. Yep. So it's the button, and you'll download that. This little PDF that's up on the screen, and that's what you get if you download it, from our website. So excellent. Thank you for the question for sure. Where's my little thing here? Here we are. All right, so track spikes. Does anybody have any really opinions on track spikes?
I do. I do not like them. I don't know. I mean, they don't support your
There's
feet.
no
I
support in
understand
them.
when you're across country, the spikes underneath them like to grip the ground so you don't slip and fall, but they do not support your feet.
And
I think the biggest answer to, there's another question on there about racing shoes versus spikes. You don't train in, I mean, you do sometimes, but the vast majority of your training's in a running shoe.
yeah.
So the transition from a running shoe to a racing shoe or a spike, you're gonna have difference. It's not the same support, so you're losing a lot of
So I think
qualities.
you had a patient that came in with a carbon fiber racing
Yep.
shoe, and she was kind
Yep.
of a mess,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And ended up
Achilles pain. She
right.
ended up going to the Brooks Adrenaline.
and ended up racing actually.
Yeah, her Ironmans.
Her Ironman in a Brooks Adrenaline. So she doesn't. You don't need the car now. If you can, they're not necessarily.
It's just lighter, I think.
It's a lighter weight. It's got so there's some qualities to it. So there's for people who can handle it, but they're not going to probably train in their carbon fiber shoe.
Because a lot of runners think if you have a lighter weight shoe, you're gonna gain, like you will gain
More time. Or
more,
less time.
you'll be a little faster, but it's like milliseconds. And I don't feel personally that the benefit of those milliseconds is worth running in a bad position
With knee pain and hip pain.
and
back pain.
maybe
And that's our
running the risk of
mentality.
getting injured.
Yeah.
And so one of my patients who cross country runners and she would take spikes and put them on the bottom of her like adrenaline or whatever shoe she was running in versus the spike or running flat.
Yeah.
So that's just my opinion. I
Yeah,
mean, you're welcome to, and you know what, I really personally care. I tell my runners, like, especially like in a track season, like a 200 or 400 or a short time, I prefer that you're really training in a really good quality shoe. But I still quite, like a marathon or a half marathon, I certainly would not wear a racing flat.
Right.
Because it's a longer distance, but for a shorter distance, if you're really glued to that and you wanna, that's fine, but train in a good shoe that's
Well, maybe
supportive.
that's the question too, is do we know the context of
It was
the distance that they're running?
Yeah.
Or are we talking a high schooler?
Spikes,
Are we talking a high schooler
Well,
who's,
some people
doing
will
our
run in
country
racing
runners.
flats for a marathon.
for America.
okay,
Yeah.
Which we probably would not. Now,
Yeah.
now Carter my son ran 100 and 200. He was a sprinter, and he had racing spikes that he would race in because you kind of, you have to, right? But and in that 100 or 200 meter race, you are on your toes, and you're not going to hit a heel strike. You need to grip. You need to go.
would
So
he
he had-
change then,
So he
was
would-
he
he would-
not in them leading up to the
Right,
race? He would run the race.
He
and
would
then he'd
warm
take
up.
them
He'd
off.
warm up in his other shoes. He
Exactly.
trained in his other shoes, and for that 10 or 22 seconds that he was running his race, he's in his spikes.
Yeah.
Totally fine. So,
Exactly.
but of course he's my kid, so we made sure he's doing other things. But fine, you can run spikes. There's no problem running spikes. I don't care about that 22 seconds of running in spikes.
Yeah.
I care about the
Hours to
the
train.
10 hours a week that he's
Yeah,
training.
Exactly.
And in those, he was in his orthotics and his New Balance shoes. That's what he trained in, and then he competed in his spikes.
So that would be where maybe a racing flat or spike for like sprinting.
Makes sense.
But for a long distance, like a mile to,
Mhm.
I wouldn't personally be a fan.
Yeah, and the running spikes would not meet any of our qualities, right? So we
Right.
looked at them. They're stiff shoes. They don't bend. They don't have heel. Kind of barely have. There's no cushion on the heel because you don't touch your heel on the ground at all when you run in them. So
Right.
so it's a whole different ball game. So I don't really care about that time when you're in that spike. But a marathon is different. If you're going to run that long, the gain you get, like you said, for the injury is probably not a good thing. All right, and probably the last question that we got, unless anybody else has anything that they want to throw in the chat, was zero drop shoes. So Tim Sturmer, who's a chiropractor, Tim, we love you. You always comment on everything that we have. He's great. Asked about zero drop shoes. And the first, you got asked two questions. One was, would zero drop shoes make it easier for you to feel your heels or harder for you to feel your heels?
Sear.
Yeah, and so which we know we like. We said, yeah, if you have a zero drop shoe, and we get this question a lot. Hey, what do you think about zero drop shoes and earth shoes? And having less underneath your heel can make it easier for you to feel your heel. The question is, do you have the ability to use that shoe when you move forward? And so I think that's kind of what we've discussed in the past, and maybe I don't know if you want to hit kind of your thought about, because we talked
I
a lot about
put
zero
a
drop
couple
shoes.
of my patients in a zero drop shoe for like rehab. You know, like, I mean, but not something that they ran to the grocery store with or around their house with, because my one patient had a horrible time getting her center of mass to get to the back part of her
So
foot.
zero drop, you will go back on your heels
Right.
more,
And,
but you have to have the strength to push yourself then forward.
right. So it wasn't a shoe that I had to go for a walk and go to the grocery store in. So I think there's an exception to every rule for the person or the client you have in front of you
Yeah.
to use a zero drop shoe. But that was maybe one instance that I've used it. But
My thought is, I think people do say, well, get your heels down on the ground. It's true.
then you don't. They have to have enough glute strength
To be able to
and
handle
stability in their pelvis in order to roll forward through their midfoot and their toe.
Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of extensions.
Yeah.
That's been my expectation.
Yeah.
We had some ultras on our list like several years ago.
Earth shoes.
Earth shoes are the ones. Ultras are probably the big brand. And a lot of people like the ultras because they have that wide toe box.
Yeah.
And so I get a lot of questions on ultras because of that wide toe box, which is people really love. And I think it's a great toe box, but there are a few people that can handle that zero drop. And I get it for standing and for grounding and for normal foot mechanics. And there's a lot of people that they're passionate about their zero drop shoes,
Yep.
right? But you just have to test it. Can you handle it? Do you have enough strength to be able to handle it? Do you feel your heel, you arch your toe? Are your tests neutral? Can you move forward without using improper muscles? If you can, great. I have no problem. Use them. I think some of the ultras had really good heel counters.
And then
I
they
think-
dropped
I think
off.
the
It used to be
Provision.
on our shoe list.
Yeah, the Provision
The
and the
Ultra Touring
Paradigm.
used to be on our shoe list.
The Torn is such a terrible shoe. I
Yeah.
hate it.
Well,
So they have an
the
Ultra.
heel counter doesn't
Yeah,
class.
they have now. If the Ultra, if you're watching, if you make the Torn a good shoe, I will sign. Like I will endorse it. Like I will autograph it. But for now, it's a terrible. It's a terrible. I've seen it. It's
Yeah.
a terrible shoe. I can't really endorse it. So even though it's got my name on it, they didn't ask me.
Is it spelled the same?
Yeah,
Um,
it's not anything. And
I
then,
get-
which was the other question. What if Ultras had a better heel counter? So Tim knows the Ultras don't have good heel counters. Would it be as good as a New Balance, or would it be as well? If it had a good heel counter, we would have more of an opportunity to test that. It's just, to me, two qualities: heel counter. Can you feel your whole foot?
Yeah.
Start there. And so
Yeah.
if it doesn't have a good heel counter, automatically we're kind of dropping the shoe off. So that was the two questions. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
Question on
I was
on
just
heel
gonna,
counters.
I want to finish that. Another common question I get a lot of emails or questions when I teach courses is about barefoot running.
Yep.
And
That was a real big
if you
change.
want to use barefoot running or barefoot type of shoes on sand or uneven terrain, they would be fine for that. But we walk around in homes and on
Flat
sidewalks that are level and where the ground doesn't give. And that will probably not be a good day for your body.
Yeah, so your foot will conform to the ground that you're walking on.
Yep.
And if you're on an uneven surface, which is great, I think we should all be out and walking on uneven ground. I think that'd be awesome.
Like walk on the grass, walk on the sand.
And in those situations, your shoe might actually be limiting your ability to use your foot normally. So if you're going to go walk on the beach, hey, take your PRI shoes off. Go just walk on the beach. That's
Yeah.
great. But if you're walking on flat ground, your foot will conform to that ground that you're walking on. And so that's why we look at shoes. None of us, but the vast majority.
I was gonna say, and I think most people, and I've had this conversation with patients before, is with the exception, for most people on an everyday basis, unless you're out mowing your lawn, very few people are ever on anything that's not hard and flat.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, when
Well,
anywhere you go, you're on a hard, flat surface. And with the exception of maybe you go on vacation, you go to the beach, you go hiking, or you mow your lawn, and that's very few. That's why shoes matter so much.
well, I think some people feel better barefoot.
So yeah,
You know, they feel barefoot because they're confined to the shoe, and the shoe's
right.
messing with their foot. So sometimes people, it's okay to go barefoot, but would you be barefoot all the time? You're going to be
Right.
wearing a shoe. You're going to have to wear a shoe.
Right.
It's a lot of patients will ask, well, I feel better when I'm barefoot. Well, is that good long term? Probably not. But if it,
Well, I think it depends a little bit on the person too. So, and then the question is, are you truly barefooted, or are you walking around in your home on your hardwood floors in socks? Now,
carpet or
right.
So hopefully the message is we don't have all the answers to this is the perfect shoe that you have to wear. We have that's
guidelines.
we wanted really to make sure today we hit guidelines
and recommended.
and recommended. And it's not, hey, this shoe is not on your list. Can I wear this shoe? Hey, if it works for you, it works for you. But look at the guidelines, whatever shoe it is, pickleball shoes, running shoes, hiking shoes. If you get the guidelines of the shoes,
And it may not have all of them.
And if you have a question, have somebody test you out.
One more thing.
Yes,
Sorry.
you
Remember, like a shoe for pickleball or a shoe for tennis has to allow for some lateral give.
Yeah.
And so taking a running shoe or a walking shoe is
a great
not,
point.
that shoe is gonna limit your ability to move side to side.
Mhm.
So my sister loves to play pickleball. And so I go, you gotta go get like a cross training shoe or a shoe that's designed for tennis to allow for some of that lateral give so you don't roll an ankle or hurt yourself.
it's too rigid is going to be a problem for that
Yeah.
activity. So
So
use your brain.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
gonna put Lori on the spot because I would just like to know, and maybe, I mean, it's kind of a loaded question. So out of the 4
That's a great
guidelines,
question. I was going to ask it.
4 guidelines, if there was one guideline that you think is more important than the other 3, which would be, is
it's a
it,
good heel counter.
that's what I thought you'd say.
You-
So,
I guess to me, I think it comes down to the person, frankly. You know, I jokingly say this to people all the time. I'm always neutral, and I always say I'm the jerk that can wear anything. But if I were going to say something, I want you to know that you feel your heel strike when you walk the ground. Because if you're walking,
Yeah.
So
if
Still
yeah,
a heel
so
counter.
exactly. So if I'm walking along and my heel's hitting the ground, I know my hamstring engages.
yeah, heel counter,
Heel counter.
heel counter.
heel counter, right? Heel counter is number 1. Number 2 is, to me, when you stand on that foot, can you feel your whole foot on the ground?
Right.
Mhm.
From a sensory perspective, not from a biomechanics perspective, from a sensory perspective, can you feel it? And if you got
Yeah.
that,
Your heel counter is like, it helps your pelvis to be in the right
Yeah.
biomechanical position, which
Well,
is the
first you hit
second
the
part of
ground,
your
so
trunk and your neck.
Yep.
And it is all about the heel counter.
Well, I think you just nailed something too that a lot of times people don't think about is the correlation between your foot, your ankle, and your neck. And that's, I think
that's why we look at it. If we look at it for
Right.
legs, for pelvises, for not for feet, we don't look at
Right,
shoes for
exactly.
feet. Right, and hopefully that came through, that and people know that. We're not, it's not for the best arch, it's for the,
Right.
it's for your whole body. So hopefully that was helpful for everybody. I think we hit about everything we could hit. If anybody has any other questions that they get a lot, they want to hit. Even if you're watching this later and you have questions, pop them in, because this is going to be on YouTube. Pop them on the comments, and we see them, we'll answer them or whatever. Feel free to reach out if you have questions, and thanks for people that are watching it either now, later on. Hopefully you had some fun and Fat Tuesday, and hopefully
next time.
I think we're gonna try to do like the first week of the month. Next month, I think the first Wednesday of March. April. It's March now. April. We're gonna start. We're gonna talk a little bit about perimenopause. So women's health. So Lori's got some information, and we're developing kind of some cool things we think that are coming down the road. So we're gonna start with just kind of an overview of
The things that we can do, that we can empower our patients that are going through perimenopause and menopause. Hormones affect every cell of your body.
yeah. So
And as
that's
physical therapists, our job is to help you to be stable so you can do some of the things to help empower you. In May, I have a nurse practitioner coming to talk about hormone replacement therapy.
we have lots of stuff planned in kind of
Yeah.
in that realm. Doesn't mean there's other questions. If you have other questions, feel free to throw them out there. We want to know, but we have about a couple months of looking at general perimenopause and what does that look like as particularly in a female population. We'll do some things with guys too, but we're gonna look at that because that's kind of a big thing. That's kind of out of culture. So hopefully join us in a month. It'll be out. We'll make sure that everybody knows. And but if you have things you want us to talk about, let us know anytime you got it. All right.
All right.
Thanks everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Appreciate it. Have a great week. All right. End stream.
I can talk for 2 hours.